Coming up on the Children's Hour, we're learning about the animals who share our backyards, our neighborhoods, and our cities. Junior producer Thaniel Lentz guides us through the prairie dog towns, roadrunner races, and clever coyotes of New Mexico. Our guest, Cooper Freeman from the Center for Biological Diversity, tells us what it's like to live with moose and lynx in Alaska. Around the globe, we meet monkeys in Thailand, stray dogs in India, koalas and magpies in Australia, and rainforest creatures in Brazil. Join the kids' crew for an adventure into the wild world that surrounds us all with the animals in the backyard. That's coming right up. The Children's Hour is an independent production of the Children's Hour Incorporated, a New Mexico-based nonprofit. We're distributed by Native Voice One, the Native American radio network.
It's time for the Children's Hour, Kids Public Radio.
What is a pigeon's favorite clock?
I don't know. What?
A coo clock.
It's time for the Children's Hour, Kids Public Radio.
If you're on a highway and roadrunner goes beep beep, just step aside and invite it up in a heap. Roadrunner runs on the road all day. Even the coyote can make him change his ways. Roadrunner, beep beep, that coyote's after you. Roadrunner, that coyote is really a crazy clown. Oh yeah. Learn that he never can hold you down. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Poor little roadrunner never bothers anyone. Running down the road is active, having fun. So let me tell you about Roadrunner. Maybe that coyote's after you. Roadrunner, beep beep. If he catches you through. Roadrunner, beep beep. That coyote's after you. Roadrunner, if he catches you through. If he catches you through. If he catches you through.
That was Roadrunner, live by the Bare Naked Ladies from the album Play Everywhere for Everyone. You're listening to the Children's Hour. I'm Katie Stone, and today we're going to learn about some of the animals that may live in your backyard. All of us around the world live together with animals, even if we don't always recognize it or notice them. From pigeons on the top of buildings to monkeys in the streets, our intern Thaniel is ready to teach us about the animals who live in our urban, suburban, and rural environments. We'll meet Cooper Freeman, who is the Alaskan director of the Center for Biological Diversity, and he can find all sorts of animals around his home. But first, Thaniel has information about the animals in our backyard.
When you think of an environment that animals live in, what comes to mind? Is it sprawling jungles full of leopards and leaves? Is it dry deserts full of beetles and birds burrowing in the sand? Or is it one of Earth's most overlooked ecosystems, our urban environments? While many people think of cities as a wasteland for animals, many critters actually call these places home and are able to coexist or even thrive in man-made environments. However, humans don't just live in cities. They live in suburbs and settlements, which are even more directly connected to the outdoors. Furthermore, humans live all over the world and in all sorts of ways. And that's exactly what we're going to learn about today. starting with the place that I call home, New Mexico. Like all parts of the world, New Mexico has a wide variety of ecosystems and a wide variety of towns and cities, all with different environments. Animals such as the prairie dog are a common sight in the desert patches along our roads and buildings. Prairie dogs, historically, lived in sprawling North American grasslands and prairies, large fields that are full of grass but have very few trees. They had an estimated population of around 9 million, which has now shrunk to around 2 million. This is very concerning, because prairie dogs are considered to be a keystone species, which means they're an essential part of the ecosystem. This is because prairie dogs live in what are called towns, huge tunnel systems that sometimes stretch hundreds of miles, and are filled with many families of prairie dogs. However, once the prairie dogs move out of their tunnels to make new ones, other animals will move into these abandoned tunnels for shelter. While prairie dog numbers have been shrinking across the plains region of the United States, prairie dogs are also very adaptable animals and have found ways of living in cities. Because the prairie dogs are able to make their home in urban environments, the other animals that rely on their burrows can do the same, making cities an easier place for animals such as burrowing owls, ferrets, and all sorts of reptiles and birds. And speaking of birds, another common animal found right in our own backyards is the roadrunner. Some of the biggest threats to native wildlife in cities includes cars, roads, and dogs and cats, which may try to eat them. So in order to make a home in cities, animals must be alert, opportunistic, and quick on their toes. Roadrunners are all of these things. With a top speed of 20 miles per hour, they can dash around to avoid animals and man-made threats. Roadrunners also commonly feed on small lizards, mammals, insects, and seeds, which can be found in abundance in cities. And New Mexico, like a lot of the United States, is also home to one of their biggest predators, an animal that has not only adapted, but thrived through human expansion, the coyote. Coyotes are the largest North American predator that can live in urban areas while keeping its wild lifestyle. Coyotes are very intelligent. They can use stoplights to figure out when it's safe to cross roads, hide from humans during the day and hunt at night, along with rooting through trash to help sustain their population. As European settlers began expanding across North America, they killed wolves and other predators that outcompeted coyotes. They cut down forests, turning them into grasslands, which coyotes prefer. And while coyotes, like wolves, were hunted out of fear by humans, coyote territory has actually expanded, and their numbers have potentially increased. In just the city of Albuquerque, we have herbivores, omnivores, and predators of all shapes and sizes. And I haven't even discussed the mountain lions, Canadian lynxes, Gila monsters, badgers, wild hares, and more that live just outside our cities. But next, we'll move over to Asia, which has some urban animals that are absolutely bananas. Tell us what animals live in your backyard at childrenshour.org. Look for this episode, Animals in the Backyard.
As I rode my pony across the western plain, I stopped and heard a sweet and sad refrain. It filled the sundown sky with a lonesome tune. It was one little coyote howling at the moon. As I rode my pony across the western plain, stopped and heard a sweet and sad refrain. Two wise owls were calling, come home soon. And and one little coyote was howling at the moon. As I rode my pony across the western plain, I stopped and heard a sweet and sad refrain. 3 prairie chickens were crowing through the trees. 2 wise owls were calling, come home soon. And one little coyote was howling at the moon. As I rode my pony across the western plain, I stopped and heard a sweet and sad refrain. 4 little doggies were lowing in the breeze. 3 prairie chickens were crowing through the trees. 2 wise owls were calling, come home soon. And one little coyote was howling at the moon. As I rode my pony across the western plain, 5 prairie dogs were whistling at a snake. 4 little doggies, 3 prairie chickens, 2 wise owls, and 1 little coyote was howling at the moon. As I rode my pony across the western plain, 6 beavers slapping their tails upon a lake. 5 prairie dogs, 4 little doggies, 3 prairie chickens, 2 wise owls, and 1 little coyote was howling at the moon. As I rode my pony across the western plains, saw 7 geese honking across the sky. 6 beavers slapping, 5 prairie dogs, 4 little doggies, 3 prairie chickens, 2 wise owls, and 1 little coyote was howling at the moon. As I rode my pony across the western plain, saw 8 mustangs whinnying wild and high. 7 geese honk honk, 6 beavers slapping, 5 prairie dogs, 4 little doggies, 3 prairie chickens, 2 wise owls, and 1 little coyote was howling at the moon. As I rode my pony across the western plain, saw 9 buffalo stampede and run away. 8 mustangs, 7 geese, honk honk, 6 beavers slapping, 5 prairie dogs, 4 little doggies, 3 prairie chickens, 2 wise owls, and 1 little coyote was howling at the moon. As I rode my pony across the western plain, heard 10 cowgirls yelling loud 'cause it's payday. 9 buffalo, 8 mustangs, 7 geese, honk honk, 6 beavers slapping, 5 prairie dogs, 4 little doggies, 3 prairie chickens, 2 wise owls, and 1 little coyote was howling at the moon. As I rode my pony across the western plain, heard 10 cowgirls yelling loud 'cause it's payday. 9 buffalo, 8 mustangs, 7 geese, honk honk, 6 beavers slapping, 5 prairie dogs, 4 little doggies, 3 prairie chickens, 2 wise owls, and 1 little coyote was howling at the moon.
That's the Canote brothers, Greg and Jerry. They are identical twins. Fun fact. You're listening to the Children's Hour, and today on the show, we're thinking about the animals that we have in our backyards. With us on the show is Cooper Freeman. He is the Alaskan director for the Center for Biological Diversity.
Alaska accounts for over half of the federally protected wilderness across the United States, with over 57 million acres of protected land. Because of this, Alaskans often find all sorts of wild animals in their backyards. Welcome to the Children's Hour, Cooper.
Thanks so much for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Could you tell us a little about the Center for Biological Diversity and your role in it?
The Center for Biological Diversity is a national environmental nonprofit with offices across the country, like in Alaska, and we focus on protecting biodiversity and the habitat and climate they need to survive. I'm our Alaska director based in the small town of Homer, and I help guide and organize all our work across the state to protect our incredible wildlife, wildlands, and oceans.
In Alaska, what kind of animals do you see on a regular basis in your day-to-day life?
Alaska is a huge place. It's about a fifth the size of the lower 48. And so much of the state is so wild and intact. So Alaskans have the great privilege of seeing so much wildlife regularly, depending on where you are. Everything from polar bears and muskox to beluga whales and wolves. Even in the most populated city of Anchorage, it's not uncommon to see brown bears, lynx, and moose on a walk through your neighborhood. It's really incredible living here, and Alaskans don't take it for granted.
Could you talk a little bit about the urban and suburban environments of Alaska?
Alaska is by and large a rural state. Alaska is known for its huge open landscapes, and there are a lot of people that live across the landscape in very small villages. And there are urban places as well. For example, Anchorage has about 300,000 people, and there are some surrounding suburban areas. And so depending on where you are in the state, you may live in a rural village that's only accessible by boat or plane, or you may live in Anchorage where there's big box stores. And these places where people live are across such diverse habitats, from temperate rainforest in the southeast in the Tongass National Forest to broad tundra in the Arctic, with no sun in the winter and no dark in the summer, to vast boreal forests in the interior. So Alaska has absolutely incredible urban and suburban environments, and it's so fascinating, the diversity of both wildlife species and habitats that you can find yourself in across the state.
Do people often run into large animals? And if so, what do they do?
Absolutely. It's one of the joys and can be one of the challenges of living in Alaska is the very frequent interactions with both incredible small and large animals alike. You know, moose or brown bears, polar bears, depending on where you live, you can see these animals near daily. And it does require an awareness that you have to live with. And it's one of the things I love most about living in a place where you interact and really live with these wild animals. You are truly in their homes. So you ask, what do you do when an animal like a moose or a brown bear or a muskox, if you live around, for example, the town of Nome? There are muskox in people's backyards. How cool is that? But they're animals and they need space and they have needs too. So what do you do? It depends on the animal. There are different tactics, even for, say, brown bears versus black bears. I think the most important thing is to learn about these animals and their behaviors, their signs, what makes them feel threatened. Moose are really common where I live, and they can be incredibly dangerous animals. But if you learn some basic signs to look for in their behavior, for example, their ears, if moose's ears are straight up and moving around, that signals to you that they're curious, they're listening, they're trying to assess the situation. But if their ears are plastered back against their heads, and their heads are down a little bit and they're grunting and the hair on their backs of their necks is up, the moose is giving you an incredibly clear signal that it feels threatened and it is time to give that moose some serious space.
Cooper Freeman is the Alaskan director of the Center for Biological Diversity. You're listening to the Children's Hour, and we're learning about animals in the backyard. Do you have animals in your backyard? Tell us about them. Go to childrenshour.org and look for our contact page. There's a lot of ways to leave us a message and tell us all about what kind of critters are creeping around your backyard. Speaking of backyards, this is Thaniel's backyard that we're hearing in the background. You can find learning materials that go with this week's episode at childrenshour.org. Look for this episode, Animals in the Backyard. We've got more with Cooper Freeman coming up. Stick with us.
You're listening to the Children's Hour, Kids Public Radio. We'll be right back.
The Children's Hour is a production of the Children's Hour Incorporated. We're a New Mexico-based nonprofit organization supported by listeners just like you. You can learn more about us at childrenshour.org. New Mexico Department of Cultural Affairs supports the Children's Hour. Museum of International Folk Art and Museum of Indian Arts and Culture in Santa Fe, New Mexico celebrate cultural heritage from New Mexico and across the world. More at moifa.org. You can keep up with the Children's Hour by subscribing to our monthly newsletter. Go to childrenshour.org and scroll down. The little form is about halfway down the page.
Hi, I love the Children's Hour because it's fun and you go to all sorts of different places. I'm Yoshi James from Australia.
Take the Children's Hour with you on your road trip. Find us at childrenshour.org or anywhere you listen to podcasts.
The moose likes to live where the water runs cold, like Montana or Minnesota. He can stand all day in the clear blue lake, eating water plants like it's no mistake. How he loves to be wandering free out among the trees so tall. Well, the moose likes to live where the winds blow cold, like up in Maine or Manitoba. It has antlers that are 6 feet wide. When it bellows his call, he is filled with pride. How he loves to be wandering free out among the trees so tall. Listen to the guitar now. To live where the weather is cold, like Norway, near Oslo. See him standing tall in the morning sun, munching on plants when the day is done. How he loves to be wandering free out among the trees so tall.
Moose on the Loose is Farmer Jason. He's performing there with Joe Nesbo and Todd Snyder. That's from a release called Nature Jams, and we're thinking about nature that's really right there. It's in your backyard. Animals in the Backyard is a show that's been written and produced by our junior producer and intern, Thaniel. You can find pictures and links and a learning guide and so much more at childrenshour.org. Look for this episode, Animals in the Backyard.
In the United States, we have animals such as bears, porcupines, deer, and even mountain lions that sometimes make their way near suburbs. Then, in cities, you'll often find animals such as squirrels, lizards, rabbits, rats, and coyotes. However, an animal that we would never expect to see wandering around our towns, unless you live in the state of Florida because their wildlife is crazy, are monkeys. However, in Thailand, that is just the case. In the cities of Phuket and Lopburi, monkeys, specifically long-tailed macaques, roam the streets in enormous groups. These long-tailed macaques have lived in the area for thousands of years, right alongside human civilizations. In the city of Lopburi, every year on the last Sunday of November, the people actually throw something called the Monkey Buffet Festival, where they put out large banquets of food for the monkeys to eat. The monkeys are not only a natural part of Thailand's ecosystem, they also hold a deep spiritual and cultural value to the people of Lopburi. However, in recent years, conflicts have arisen. The large number of monkeys that live in the city has attracted many tourists from around the world. And while this tourism is good for supporting Thailand's economy, and it brings up important wildlife conservation topics, it has also created problems. Because the monkeys are so cute, many tourists and locals will feed the monkeys year-round. In monkey troops, weaker members often give up food to their alpha as a sign of submission. So after humans give them food, they see us as weaker than we actually are. In recent years, the Thailand monkeys have been growing increasingly aggressive, and often lash out when they expect food from humans but don't get it. All the free food also means that the monkey population has grown out of control, which is bad for the monkeys, their ecosystem, and the surrounding people. However, the city of Lopburi in Thailand has made great progress in tackling the monkey problem. By relocating and sterilizing large groups of monkeys so that they can't have babies, they have drastically reduced their populations, and the relationships between people and monkeys have begun to heal. Another country that's having trouble with a similar problem is India. In India, there are around 70 million stray dogs. Like the Lopburi monkeys, India has strong cultural and religious ties to the dogs. And it is illegal to both kill stray dogs or remove them from a street they live on. Also, similarly to the monkeys, the dogs have come to expect people to hand out food to them, and thus have become increasingly aggressive. Rabies is also a large problem in India, and many of the dogs are unvaccinated against the sickness. India has been addressing the problem by increasing their sterilization and vaccination efforts to help the dogs, along with increasing discussion around responsible pet ownership. However, the problem is far from over, and both government officials and individuals are still discussing the different ways to tackle this canine controversy. This brings up an important topic to remember when discussing urban environments. In some ways, loving urban animals too much can be just as bad as hating our urban creatures. While there is nothing wrong with watching these critters from afar, feeding and petting a wild creature before knowing if it's safe is no good. Always learn about the animals that live in your backyard and the best ways to interact with them. Most of the time, that just means giving them plenty of space. You're listening to the Children's Hour, and we've got plenty more.
Mama was queen of the mambo, Papa was king of the Congo. Deep down in the jungle, I started banging my first bongo. Every monkey like to be in my place instead of me, 'cause I'm the king of bongo, baby, I'm the king of bongo bong. I went to the big town where there is a lot of sound, from the jungle to the city looking for a bigger crown. So I play my boogie for the people of big city, but they don't go crazy when I'm banging on my boogie. I'm the king of the bongo, king of the bongo. Hear me when I come, baby. King of the bongo, king of the bongo. Nobody like to be in my place instead of me, 'cause nobody go crazy when I'm banging on my boogie. I'm a king without a crown, hanging loose in a big town, but I'm a king of bongo, baby, I'm the king of bongo bong. King of the bongo, king of the bongo. Hear me when I come, baby. King of the bongo, king of the bongo. Hear me when I come. They say that I'm a clown, making too much dirty sound. They say there is no place for little monkey in this town. Nobody like to be in my place instead of me, 'cause nobody go crazy when I'm banging on my boogie. I'm the king of the bongo, king of the bongo. Hear me when I come, baby. King of the bongo, king of the bongo. Hear me when I come. Banging on my bongo, all that swing belongs to me. I'm so happy there's nobody in my place instead of me. I'm a king without a crown, hanging loose in a big town. I'm the king of bongo, baby, I'm the king of bongo bong. King of the bongo, king of the bongo bong. Hear me when I come, baby.
King of the bongo, king of the bongo.
Hear me when I come. Mama was queen of the mambo, Papa was king of the Congo. Deep down in the jungle, I start banging my first bongo. Every monkey like to be in my place instead of me, 'cause I'm the king of bongo, baby. I'm the king of bongo bong. Hit me when I come. Hit me when I come, baby. Hit me when I come.
That's Manu Chao right here on the Children's Hour with Bongo Bong. You're listening to the Children's Hour, and today we're thinking about the animals in the backyard. So different if you live in Thailand and you have monkeys, or if you live in India and you have packs of wild dogs. What's in your backyard? Reach out to us. Go to childrenshour.org/contact, or just look for this episode page, Animals in the Backyard. You'll also find learning materials that come with this show and activities too. Thaniel and I had a conversation with the Alaskan director of the Center for Biological Diversity, Cooper Freeman, about the animals that they see up there in Alaska in their backyards.
Due to climate change, have any animals moved to Alaska or have migrated to other parts of the state?
Alaska is a huge state. What we're seeing actually is more species moving north, animals moving northwards in Alaska than moving into Alaska per se. I'll give some examples. Beaver historically didn't live in places further north in Alaska, at least in recent times, because they were covered by ice. The permafrost in the tundra was frozen. As the permafrost and the tundra are thawing and the ice is retreating north, we're seeing beaver move north. We're also seeing that with moose. And this is a really interesting phenomenon. Salmon, for example, are co-evolved to live with beaver. There's actually indigenous stories, I believe from British Columbia, that say that salmon taught beaver to jump. So we think that by and large, salmon streams that aren't used to having beaver in them will do okay with beaver moving north. But beaver also, in creating dams and rivers, can accelerate the thaw of permafrost by creating standing water that warms permafrost. So these are really complicated relationships as animals move around. As moose move north, because the habitat is greening up, there's more larger trees in the tundra, from shrubs and grass that may be up to your ankle or your knee. Now we're seeing willows and trees that are up to the top of your head and taller, which favors moose but doesn't favor caribou. So caribou's range is contracting while moose is expanding. We don't want to see the caribou go away, but moose moving in is an interesting opportunity. One thing that's really concerning is that Alaska is at the top of the continent, especially for terrestrial species. There is nowhere to keep moving north. At some point, you fall off into the ocean. That's really concerning, because when species already at the northernmost end of their range phase out of that range becomes no longer suitable for them. There is nowhere to go. And those species we're very concerned about will just go extinct. And we may already be seeing that. For example, the gray-headed chickadee, the northernmost chickadee in North America, may have gone extinct. The last sighting was 2018 and no one's seen it since then. And it lives permanently year-round in the Arctic. And so it's very concerning. On the other hand, there are many animals that are generalists, and I'm hoping we'll be able to adapt and evolve and find new ways to live in this age of climate change.
Well, one animal that's in my backyard every year are sandhill cranes, and I think that they might go north up to Alaska. But if they do, it's like you're stealing our sandhill cranes.
I have a lot of great memories seeing these birds. So, out of all the animals that can be found in your backyard, do you have any favorites or special memories with them that you'd like to share?
We're not stealing your sandhill cranes. They migrate and they live down south, and then every spring they come up to our town here in Homer, Alaska, as well as many other places across Alaska. And it's so magical. Winter is very long in Alaska. It can be very dark and very cold. And sometimes you wonder if we're ever going to make it out of the winter. But invariably, every spring, the sandhill cranes show up and they're very loud. They have these big noises. They're excited to be back. The grass is greening up, the light's returning, and the sandhill cranes show up, and you hear it out of your window in the morning when you're waking up, and it just feels like summer is here. Spring is here. We made it through the winter. Summer's on its way. The warmth is coming. The sun is coming back. And it's that annual rhythm that we get to live in, that wildlife shows us the way forward and gives us hope. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to reconnect with the seasonal rhythms and the flow of the wild, with the sandhill cranes moving from south to north and back to north and coming up here and having their babies. And it's really a magical time of year. And it's one of my favorite experiences that I get to have here. So may the sandhill cranes continue to return year after year and welcome back the warmth and the sun and summertime in Alaska.
We're sandhill cranes with half-filled brains. I'm a flighty kind of guy and she's a ditzy dame. We refused to study and our moms were peeved. When we found each other we were so relieved. We're two birds of a feather, we're identical types. On our heads in red are identical stripes. We're sandhill cranes with half-filled brains, and we don't mind a bit if we're called half-wit. Like all cranes worldwide, on our wings we glide, on our brains we depend just as little as we can. And our diet is strange, through the fields we range. Caterpillar is preferred, though we will eat grains. Though we mate for life, there's considerable strife. You'll have ruffled pin feathers with a crane for a wife. We're sandhill cranes with half-filled brains. Anything we learn dribbles down the drain. More than 4 feet high, with bright yellow eye, we could peck your neck if you happened by. But we're not that sort, we're just good sports, though we don't like coot 'cause they're too darn short. In our mating dance we will jump and prance, then we'll bow to each other, what a sound we will utter. We're sandhill cranes with half-filled brains, and we stay outdoors even when it rains.
This is Linda Hogan, reading The Sandhills. The language of cranes, we once were told, is the wind. The wind is their method, their current, the translated story of life they write across the sky. Millions of years they have blown here on ancestral longing. Their wings of wide arrival, necks long, legs stretched out above strands of earth where they arrive with the shine of water. Stories interminable, language of exchanges, descended from the sky. And then they stand, earth made only of crane, from bank to bank of the river, as far as you can see, the ancient story made new.
Linda Hogan was recorded by the Poetry Foundation. Find our playlist and learning guide and so much more for this episode at childrenshour.org. Look for Animals in the Backyard.
You're listening to the Children's Hour, Kids Public Radio. We'll be right back.
The Children's Hour is now producing weekly educational modules to go with every episode, thanks to a grant from the Albuquerque Community Foundation. You can support this effort too. Go to childrenshour.org and click Donate. The Children's Hour is grateful to the Outpost Performance Space in Albuquerque, New Mexico for hosting our recordings. Many thanks to New Mexico Arts, a division of the New Mexico Department of Cultural Affairs, and the National Endowment for the Arts for their support of the Children's Hour. The Children's Hour is grateful to the City of Albuquerque Cultural Services Department and the Urban Enhancement Trust Fund for their support. You're listening to the Children's Hour. I'm Katie Stone here with Thaniel. He's our junior producer and intern. And Thaniel has been working on this show, Animals in the Backyard, and has some information for us all about animals that are in the backyards in places like Australia and Brazil. But before we get there, we are still talking with Cooper Freeman. He's the Alaskan director of the Center for Biological Diversity. And if you'd like to follow our playlist and get our learning materials and see pictures, go to childrenshour.org. Look for this episode, Animals in the Backyard.
Something that we often see all around the world, as the climate becomes harsher and food becomes more scarce, animals are starting to move closer and closer to cities in order to find food in things like garbage cans. Is there anything we can do to protect the animals in our backyards and ourselves?
Absolutely. It's really important, even in places like Alaska, where there is so much open space, to be incredibly conscious and thoughtful about our own little zones around our homes to keep wildlife safe and to keep wildlife wild. Take Anchorage, for example, our largest city in Alaska. There are a lot of people there that keep chickens. They like fresh eggs. But if not tended to properly with good fencing, put away at night, brown bears may get into people's chicken coops, and that's an issue that comes up every summer. But with very basic adjustments that people can make, including electric fences, for example, are a great deterrent for bears. The chickens can stay safe and the bears can stay safe, and that keeps bears out of people's backyards and it keeps people safe from bears. Trash containment is another really important tool. For example, where I live here, the dumpsters we use have gates that you close for bears. And as long as those are maintained, the bears can't get into the dumpsters. And people are by and large pretty good about putting their trash inside the dumpsters and closing the gates. It does take effort to live in a good way with wildlife. But once you get into the rhythm, and if we design our infrastructure to do it, we really can live with these animals, and we have to, and we should. It brings so much joy and beauty and wonder into our lives to get to see a big moose walking across our backyards. The other day, I had a lynx right through our land here, which was absolutely magical. It's a real gift to get to live with these animals, and it does take just a little bit of effort and thought, but it's not hard. We can do it. We have lots of experience and tools, and the benefits vastly outweigh the little modifications we have to make to our life to keep everyone safe and healthy.
Cooper Freeman is the Alaskan director at the Center for Biological Diversity. You can learn more about their work and see links and more at childrenshour.org. Look for this episode, Animals in the Backyard. We've got more coming up. Stick with us.
Well, a raccoon's got a ring round tail, possum tail goes bare. A rabbit's got no tail at all, just a little old hunk of hair. Well, a possum up the cinnamon tree, a raccoon on the ground. A raccoon says to possum, won't you throw them simmons down?
Possum is The Hollow Trees from their Hollow Trees release. You're listening to the Children's Hour, and Thaniel, our junior producer and intern, has been working on this show on animals in the backyard.
Australia, home of the Great Barrier Reef, the Sydney Opera House, and some of the strangest animals known to humankind. From tiny venomous spiders to giant saltwater crocodiles, there is no lack of crazy creatures in Australia. And a critter that is a whole lot less scary, but just as silly, is the koala. While these creatures prefer the Australian woodlands, full of native eucalyptus plants, human expansion has forced these animals to live closer and closer to humans. However, these koalas are often in danger of being hit by cars, and can even spread serious diseases to humans. Because of this, it is important for Australians to stay alert around areas and keep a respectful distance between themselves, their pets, and the koalas. Another animal that can be found in an Australian's backyard is the Australian magpie. And somehow, despite living in the same country with some of the most venomous snakes, spiders, and sea life, the scariest creature that Australians have to deal with on a regular basis is a small black and white bird, often no heavier than 350 grams. While most of the Australian animals that foreigners worry about running into, funnel webs, coastal taipans, and crocs, either run away from humans or don't live all that close. These birds, however, actively seek violence towards anything that comes near their nest. From August to October, the Australian magpie's nests are often full of small, vulnerable chicks, which their parents protect. During swooping season, Australians know to wear protective hats and headgear to avoid getting pecked on the head. While the magpie can be a menace, they are a protected species under Australian law, and many Australians have come to love the birds. However, these birds, just like a lot of native Australian wildlife, are falling prey to an even bigger Australian menace: feral cats. Cats were brought to Australia first in the 1700s by European settlers, and ever since, they've been devastating to Australia's native small mammals, birds, and rodents, some of which are endangered or threatened. Because of this, Australia has taken to violent means in order to quell the large number of feral cats. This includes shootings, poison traps, and laws that actually require Australians to keep pet cats indoors in certain regions. While some people believe that these actions are too harsh, others believe that they are necessary to protect Australia's diverse wildlife. And speaking of diverse wildlife, we now move to the most biodiverse country in the world, Brazil, which along with Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Bolivia, Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana, contains the Amazon rainforest. The Amazon rainforest is estimated to be home to over 3 million different species, and is 6.7 million square kilometers. However, that number is shrinking every year due to deforestation. Currently, animals such as jaguars, Amazon river dolphins, and species of parrot, monkeys, tapirs, and so much more all rely on the Amazon rainforest for survival. Furthermore, the Amazon rainforest is one of the few land masses that currently produces more oxygen than carbon dioxide, making it extremely important in our efforts to help slow climate change. While the thought of losing the Amazon's amazing biodiversity is scary, Brazil has made steps to push for cleaner agriculture and biodiversity. Tijuca is a national park that is over 15 square miles. The park lies right in the middle of one of Brazil's largest cities, Rio de Janeiro, and is considered to be the largest urban rainforest in the world. However, for over a century, the park was missing all of its native wildlife after plantations drove them out. But in 2009, a movement called Project Refauna was started, which over the decades has worked to return the natural inhabitants back to Tijuca. This shows that despite the devastation of deforestation and urban expansion, humans still have the ability to work together for the betterment of all life. And we can live in harmony with nature.
That's our intern and junior producer, Thaniel Lentz, who's been teaching us about animals in our backyard. This is from Brazilian Playground, right here on the Children's Hour.
Antigamente falava com a cobra, o jabuti e o leão. Olha o macaco na selva. Não é macaco, baby, é meu irmão. Porém, durou pouquíssimo tempo essa incrível curtição. Pois o homem, rei do planeta, logo fez sua careta e começou a sua civilização. Agora já é tarde, ninguém nunca volta jamais. O jeito é tomar um foguete, é comer desse banquete para obter a paz que a gente tinha quando falava com os animais, que a gente tinha quando falava com os animais. O homem antigamente falava com a cobra, o jabuti e o leão. Olha o macaco na selva. Não é macaco, baby, é meu irmão. Porém, durou pouquíssimo tempo essa incrível curtição. Pois o homem, rei do planeta, logo fez sua careta e começou a sua civilização. Agora já é tarde, ninguém nunca volta jamais. O jeito é tomar um foguete, é comer desse banquete para obter a paz, a velha paz que a gente tinha quando falava com os animais, que a gente tinha quando falava com os animais, que a gente tinha quando falava com os animais.
You're listening to the Children's Hour. I'm Katie Stone. Today on the show, we've been learning about animals in our backyards. And we heard about some of the animals from North America, South America, Asia, and Australia. And there are many more animals who live in our urban environments and suburban environments and rural environments around the world. So if there is an animal that you love in your backyard, which we didn't have time to cover today, would you please tell us about it? Go to childrenshour.org and you'll see how to contact us. And while you're there, you can find so much information about what you learned today on the show, including our learning materials, our learning guide that meets and cites educational standards, and our activities. It's all at childrenshour.org. Look for animals in the backyard. We're almost out of time on the Children's Hour, but before we go, we wanted to play this one. This is Weird Australian Animals by Caper Kids. We'll catch you next time for another edition of the Children's Hour.
Hi, I'm a thorny devil. I might sound bad, but I'm not evil. I've got camouflage all over my skin. I live in the desert where I blend in. I've got pointed thorns all over my back, which help me survive when others attack. I'm one of a kind, I'm really unique. I love to eat ants, they're a tasty treat.
I'm a platypus, I've got good looks. And if you've read your history books, people once believed I wasn't real. I'm an ugly mammal with a duck bill, a beaver's tail and on his feet. I'm an animal you wanna meet, but don't get too close. I got venomous spurs, which can be deadly to small critters. We are weird Australian animals. 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 We are weird Australian animals.
G'day everyone, I'm an echidna. I also eat ants and I'm a good digger. My claws at the front and feet at the back are very handy for digging up snacks. I'm a monotreme like my platypus friend, which means we're mammals who lay eggs. And when I'm scared you might only see my spiny spikes protecting me.
And we're the second tallest birds alive. Our wings are small and we cannot fly. Our emulate the power hits and help us run really quick. We eat insects, fruit and plants, and drink lots of water when we get the chance. With all that dirt and all that dust, our see-through eyelids are a must. We are weird Australian animals. 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 We are weird Australian animals.
What's that stink? Oh, it's me. What did you think? I'm a little bit crazy with bad hygiene, but I'm an animal, so don't blame me. I'll eat anything, anywhere. I'm a Tasmanian devil, yeah. I eat animals, dead or alive. I love to scream and get in fights.
The Children's Hour is produced by the Children's Hour Incorporated, a New Mexico nonprofit.
You can find photos, links, learn-along guides, and more about us at childrenshour.org.
This episode of the Children's Hour was written and produced by Thaniel Lentz, our junior producer and intern, with production help from me, Katie Stone, and Sarah Gabrielli. Amber Shield writes our learning materials, which can be found at childrenshour.org. Look for this episode, Animals in the Backyard.
Find our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, or go to our patreon.com/The Children's Hour.
Or ask your smart speaker to play the Children's Hour podcast.
Our theme music was written by C.K. Barlow.
The Children's Hour is distributed by Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
Thanks for listening to the Children's Hour, Kids Public Radio.